Soon, Thomas was as good as new. Now I can get back to my job at Great Waterton, he tooted. Thomas couldn't wait. He shoved cheerily out of the repair yard. Thomas was very happy to see his friend Percy. "Hello, Percy," he tooted. "I thought Toby was to pick up workmen." "Hello, Thomas. Stanley has given me extra jobs because he says I give very smooth rides," peeped Percy proudly. "Tomorrow, Stanley and I are going to work together on the tower." Thomas didn't want to hear about Stanley. He was upset. Next, Thomas found Jack, Monty and Max. They were very busy. "Come on, Monty and Max, let's make Stanley proud," Jack cried. "He's asked us to fill in 3 holes and we've only filled in 1. "Hello," tooted Thomas. But Jack, Monty and Max were too busy to notice him. Thomas was even more upset. He felt as if he didn't matter at all. He puffed sadly away. But Thomas forgot all about feeling sad when he chuffed into Great Waterton Station. It was starting to look as it must have done long ago. "Bubbling boilers," he cried. "This is very exciting." Then Thomas saw Stanley. He was with the Fat Controller. The Fat Controller saw Thomas. "Come here," he boomed. "Hello, Thomas," steamed Stanley. Thomas tooted back, but very quietly. "Stanley has done a good job. Work is moving fast," the Fat Controller declared. "So I have decided," he added, "that Stanley will stay in charge and you will help him." Thomas's funnel flattened. Stanley was to stay in charge? Thomas had lost the most important job of all, the job he wanted more than anything else. That afternoon, Stanley asked Thomas to shunt some trucks. "You're the best shunter ever, Thomas," Stanley chuffed cheerily. "I will be back for the trucks very soon." Thomas was very good at trucks, and he also really liked shunting trucks, but he didn't really like Stanley telling him what to do. Thomas chuffed unhappily to the trucks. He wanted things back the way they were, before Stanley had arrived on the island. Thomas shunted lots of trucks. Stanley had to take them up the steep hill out of the town to the wharf. Suddenly, an idea flew into Thomas's funnel. "If I shunt an extra long line of trucks, Stanley will never be able to pull them," he puffed to himself. "Everyone will see he's not so strong after all. Then I will be in charge again." Soon, the trucks were ready. They were very, very heavy. Stanley chuffed back. "My, that's a long train," he puffed. "Not for a strong engine like you," tooted Thomas. But Thomas knew it was too long and too heavy. Stanley started up the hill. It was very steep. Stanley was doing his best. Stanley was using all his huff and all his puff. The trucks clanked and creaked. The train was far too heavy. Stanley's wheels spun and slid. Suddenly, snapped, and Stanley's trucks rolled away, faster and faster. The engines gasped as Stanley's train came racing down the hill. It smashed into the tower. The tower crashed to the ground. Bricks and dust exploded everywhere. All the hard work was wasted. The engines gasped in horror, and Thomas felt worst of all. He knew it was all his fault. The Fat Controller and Miss Jenny came to see what had happened. "This is a disaster," boomed the Fat Controller. "Thomas," he asked, "why did you shunt so many trucks for Stanley?" Thomas felt terrible. He knew why he'd done it, but he couldn't tell the Fat Controller and the other engines. He felt too ashamed, so he said nothing. The Fat Controller was very cross. The other engines started to whisper. "Thomas doesn't like Stanley," snorted James. "That's why he shunted too many trucks for him." "Why would Thomas do such a thing?" asked Toby. "Thomas would never do that," peeped Percy, but he was worried. Thomas felt very bad. He puffed slowly away. Thomas found an old track. He wanted to be alone. "The other engines don't want me around," he puffed sadly. "They wish I wasn't here at all." Stanley puffed towards Thomas. He saw that Thomas looked sad and alone. "Thomas feels bad," he chuffed to himself. He felt very sorry for him. Later, the Fat Controller called the engines together. "Now, Great Waterton may not be ready for Sodor Day," he announced sternly. The engines gasped. "Miss Jenny's crew will load the rubble into the trucks tonight. But this means extra work for all of you," he added. "Tomorrow you will start to shunt the trucks away to the sidings." Thomas had let down the Fat Controller. He had let down the other engines, and he had let himself down. The other engines started to chuff away. No one spoke to Thomas. He was no longer in charge, and he felt he was no longer wanted.